A while back, I had made a video where I spoke about a quote, and the quote is, "You look for causes that are now in operation that are known to produce the effects in question." So, what that's talking about is so if you're looking at the whole earth and there's a big layer of ash all over it, you want to look for something that can produce a giant layer of ash like that. So, a volcano or an asteroid, and I'm not a genius when it comes to anything like that. So the point is it's a way of looking at things that are present now that have happened in the past. So if there's a whole bunch of maybe a mountain fell in half or something, maybe an earthquake could produce that, or some kind of shifting with the tectonic plates. So you're looking at a mountain right now, and you see that there's a layer of ash on it. Well, maybe you're looking at a volcano, or if you're digging through the ground and you found a big layer of ash that went really far today, well, you know that a volcano had to produce that at some point, or an asteroid or something, right? So I'm going to post a video in the description where I kept messing that up. I accidentally kept saying the quote wrong. So it's causes that are now in operation that are known to produce the effects in question. So when we apply that to Scripture, we're looking at things that are happening today, and we're reconciling that with what Jesus said. Like, oh, so that's happening now. Like, that's why I always, when I do the voice and I'm like, "Hello, brothers and sisters. We're so glad to have you here today." I don't think we ever meet anybody who talks like that in real life. So, I like how Noam Chomsky put it, and this is biblical, and he doesn't speak on the Bible topics, but this is an example of something we see happening today that the Scripture speaks of in the writing that from a long time ago. But so he explains how the kings and the queens always listen to the flatterers in the court. Here, I'm going to adjust my camera a little. They always listen to the flatterers, the ones who speak eloquently and say, "Yes, king, you're the greatest thing on the planet." And those are the ones who have always been considered the intellectuals, and they're the false prophets of Scripture, the ones who would butter up the king, like they say in our culture, brown nosing, like, "Oh yes, king, we love you, you're so great," just like, So they flatter, and they play dress up. They put on fancy clothes to look real nice and look at me shine, and they augment their voice. And the Scripture warns us all that. I mean, it's a 2,000-year-old book, and people are like, "Well, we don't believe in Jesus. We don't believe the Scriptures." Well, I wouldn't believe it either if it wasn't for everything that it's shared with me and explained to me was true. And I see it happen currently. It's happening now. So another big one I wanted to share with y'all is if you go to a mall and you were like me, and I was only 18, and I had just got out of the Marine Corps, and they could smell money on me because they knew I was going to get that steady paycheck. And I mean, I got hammered when I went to the mall by like 3 or 4 different shops. Like, "Hey, come in here, come in here." So I had like a cell phone when I left. I had jewelry when I left because they would set up a payment plan, right? But I was young and I didn't understand those little tricks like that. So I had every place in the mall leaving with my money. So what I learned that what getting ripped off looks like. So when I began to go to these different churches, and I needed friends, I needed help, I needed some solidarity, some permanence in my life, and all the different places I went while I was in the military. I went to North Carolina, South Carolina, Afghanistan. I I've been in Texas, and I've lived all over too. So I've lived in Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma. I've been to California while I was in the military, to Florida, and I had gone to churches in all of these different places, and there was no one there in all those places as like to provide some kind of solidarity that I needed in my life, some kind of friendship, someone to be there, right? Someone to lean on, right? Lean on me when you're nah. So the So all of those things, those are my experiences, and those are the things that we have now in our present time as evidence as we mature and we learn to understand what those things meant in the past. And when we see people doing those things now, we have that collection of little artifacts in the past that show us what's happening currently. And when we believe the scriptures and we study the scriptures and we glean from the scriptures, that's what intellect actually means, together. Just like when Ruth was gathering the gleanings that Boaz had left behind, right? Well, we gather from the edges of the field and we gather what we can. And that's what intellect means, together. So that's what we do. You know, we gather from our experiences and we look at what's happening now and we reconcile the two. So that's the way we study and we reconcile history. We look at things that happened and we see what's currently happening and we say, oh, okay, that makes sense. And we look at these patterns and we trust in God. We believe in Him. So I just wanted to break that down, what I meant when I said causes that are now in operation, that are known to produce the effects in question. They sell Jesus like He's a good to be sold. And they rip you off and take your money, just like when you go to the mall. They rip you off and take your money, especially if you don't know how to say no. So even if you're capable of going in there and you already know what you want, well, if you're young and immature, they're going to be able to take advantage of you way easier, no problem, right? They're going to be able to, oh, come on in here, and oh, have you considered your family? Christmas is coming up, Valentine's Day is coming up, Mother's Day is coming up, St. Patrick's Day is coming up. Get them this new fancy little gizmo or contraption. And when you're young, it's a lot harder to say no than if you're mature and experienced and you've already been ripped off 100 times. By then, you'll know how to say, no, I don't want it, man. Nah, sorry, I gotta go, and keep walking, right? Well, that's what the scripture says when it says they, through feigned words, will make merchandise of you. Or the love of money is the root of all evil. And the places where filthy lucre, they preach for filthy lucre. They teach for hire, they preach for hire, and they judge for reward. And we're not supposed to take false charity if it involves manipulating us. They use it like leverage, and they use it to counter sales resistance. That's what marketing is. So here you go. Come on in here. We're giving out a free bag. And then you go in there to get the free bag, and you end up buying $500 worth of jewelry, right? So that's the way that they get you into these systems and they keep you there, is through different kinds of leverage and different ways of manipulating your emotions or logic, like ethos, pathos, and logic, right? So they use emotions, they use your logic, and they use your maybe your race or your culture. So just different ways to manipulate you, and just be aware of that. When we learn of these things, just keep it in mind when you go out into the world and you're actually experiencing things in the moment, and use your experiences to protect yourself, especially the way that God has given us His Word to protect ourselves. So I hope that this helps, and thanks for taking the time to watch. All right, bye, y'all.